Namaskaram. In this video, I'd like to discuss what we've been up to as an organization in the year 2020. At the moment, the only initiative that we've been working on full time is Shuddhi Vidya. So this video is going to be all about what we've been doing with Shuddhi Vidya and some of the challenges we've been facing. Now we have a detailed chronological report on the significant events throughout 2020 about this program, but I don't want this video to be a boring detailed report. You can go ahead and read this on our blog. I'll provide you a link for it. In this video, I just want to quickly talk about some of the challenges we've been facing doing what we've been doing. Now, before I discuss the challenges that we've been facing, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the ecosystem that we've been using to conduct this course. If you've been following our updates, you'll know that we are conducting a remote learning course on web development to 3 schools in rural India, and we are using some free tools available on the internet for us to conduct this program. So the tools we're using are Google Classroom, which is like an interface where we can host course material and offer assignments and grade them and all those things. So we're basically using Google Classroom for organizing the course material, and we're using WhatsApp for communication with the students. We have certain groups where we can post announcements to the students and they can also get back to us with questions and doubts. And we also have the leaderboard application, which is a custom built application where the students can monitor their own progress, and also they can monitor the progress of their teammates and their peers and see where they stand. So if you see here, we have the name of the team that they're in and what their score is and how many late submissions they've submitted and how many submissions they've missed. And you'll get more information about each team and each student when you visit this portal. So this portal acts as a way for students to keep track of their progress and their performance and various other things. Now, getting to the challenges of this ecosystem that we're using, the first thing to note is that we're using 3 separate disconnected platforms. We're using WhatsApp for communication, which is tied to their mobile number, and we're using Classroom for coursework, which is tied to their email ID, and then we're using the leaderboard application for progress reports, which kind of also is tied to their email ID, but it won't be publicly visible, nor does it have any authentication. So we can't really show the email ID to the public, and they have to search it using their name. So we have name, email, and phone number being used in 3 separate platforms that are not even connected together. And as you can imagine, that poses a significant challenge in terms of coordinating the information and integrating all of it into a unified experience. And this is doubly more challenging given the fact that all of our students are rural children who don't have much of a technological exposure. So oftentimes they're confused as to what's going on, and some of them are lost about how to do things. And it is exacerbated by the fact that we have technological disconnects in the ecosystem. So not being centralized and therefore not being connected is a huge issue in this ecosystem, and everything is not tied to their email ID, as we noted, WhatsApp being tied to their mobile number. So when somebody communicates to us over WhatsApp, we don't know which student it is because it just shows the mobile number, and when they're communicating to us on the Classroom app, we don't know their phone number, so we can't really tie the interactions together. Another issue with the Classroom platform is that the email is not replaceable, as in when a student switches to using a different email ID for whatever reason, they have to basically redo all of their assignments to ensure that they have the same progress as before in their old email ID, which is really not ideal, but that's how it is right now. And there's also an issue of there being no validation for submissions of assignments. And this is a huge issue because what ends up happening is we create an assignment on the Google Classroom platform, and they're supposed to respond to the instructions in the assignment, asking a certain question or an attachment of their work or something like that. And these students are able to click on submit without having entered that information. And that means that while we are grading these assignments, we get something like this where they haven't really submitted any work, and we have to remind them by saying, please read the instructions and follow the instructions before submitting. So all of these empty submissions create a havoc in terms of how effective their participation is, because these students go back thinking that they've already done the work just because they've clicked on the submit button, even though they haven't really done the work. And that's really bad. One really nice feature that Google Classroom allows for is the option to attach a Google quiz to an assignment. So we can basically create a quiz like this and attach it to an assignment and ask them to complete this quiz, which will be graded. So you can see here that there is a total of 10 points to this quiz. And when the student submits this, it will get collected as a Google sheet where their scores will be listed, tying it to their email IDs. And we also have their names and which class and which school they're in. Now, the issue with this is that Google Classroom doesn't automatically tie these scores to the student profile. So we end up having to manually comb through these data entries IDs, looking for the email ID of the particular student enrolled in Google Classroom and copying this score and assigning it to that student manually. So this is a very laborious process and there's no way for us to circumvent this process. So that can be really frustrating. And another issue with the Google Classroom interface is that it doesn't offer a very streamlined interface for grading, which means that we end up having to click through a lot of buttons and going through a lot of processes while we're grading these assignments. It'll be a lot nicer if the platform allowed us to quickly pass through different assignments without having to click too many buttons and also filter these assignments that are pending grading in such a way before we even get into the grading process. So this is an inconvenience when it comes to efficient grading, and that is a factor when we are grading close to 500 students per week or so. And there is a certain level of complexity involved in the joining of the classroom and tying all the data points together and all of this, which is specifically felt by the students because they're really not that tech savvy because of their lack of exposure to smartphone or the internet. One example that I have for this is that during the initial stages, when we invited them to the classroom interface, they joined using their parents' email ID because these students don't have their own email IDs. So they go into the classroom and announce their name and their class and the school while they're logged in from their parents' email account. So we've had several instances of this happening where a student is logged in from their parents' email account because the phone belongs to the parent and the parent is using their own email ID to be logged into the phone. And the students don't really get the concept that they have to have their own email IDs before they join this course. So we had a lot of difficulties like this and we had to recreate the entire classroom after telling them to create their own email IDs first. So we asked them to create their own email IDs and then we ended up giving them a Google form to fill out where they enter their name, the class, the school and their email IDs and the phone numbers and all of that stuff so that we get a database like this involving all the students and their email IDs and their contact numbers along with the school and class. And we had to vet this information because these email IDs were manually entered and there could be some errors in it. So we had to go through a process of verifying these email IDs by sending some emails to the individual email IDs and asking them to respond to it by saying verify as a reply to that email and marking it as being verified or invalid as the case may be. And also asking them to register their teams in a different Google form with these email IDs to ensure that all the members here are registered in some team or the other. And then also going through a third process of checking whether these students have joined the classroom or not using these email IDs. So you can imagine the level of complexity involved here is too much for something that is so basic, which is basically to ascertain that these students are joining the classroom using the proper email IDs and we have a record of that. So there is a unnecessary level of complexity involved in having a streamlined and documented roster of all the students. And also there's no way for us to moderate the process of joining the classroom. What we ended up doing was that we ended up inviting each of these verified email IDs that we collected to join the classroom, and students were supposed to join using that invite that they received in their email inbox. But turns out that a lot of people joined using different email IDs even though they were using the invite in their email inbox. So there were a lot of participants in the classroom who were not supposed to be there using that email ID, and there was no way for us to eliminate the duplicate accounts in the class because we don't really know who is behind a particular email ID. So all of this should give you an idea as to how cumbersome the whole thing was, even though we were trying to achieve something really simple. So these are some of the challenges that we've faced in conducting a simple online course, and we have some solutions in the works. I will discuss what those solutions are in the next update. Thanks for watching this video. Please leave your questions and comments down below in the comment section. And if you have any suggestions for how we can improve this, please let us know. And if you would like to support our organization, please like and share this video and also subscribe to our channel. And also you can donate to us using the links down below for our Patreon and the UPI gateway. You can also show your support by volunteering with us. Links to all of that is down below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.